The more Donald tries to distract us from the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, a scandal I would remind you of his own making, the more new revelations come to light. As the New York Times reports this morning, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released email exchanges between convicted sex trafficker of minors Epstein and his co conspirator, accomplice, and also convicted sex trafficker of minors, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the journalist Michael Wolff. These emails were found in the documents supplied to the committee by Epstein's estate. They reveal new evidence about Donald's interactions with Epstein's victims and knowledge of his crimes. The Times writes, quote, in one of the messages, Mr. Epstein flatly asserted that Donald knew about the girls, many of whom were later found by investigators to have been underage. In another, Epstein pondered how to address questions from the news media about the relationship as Donald was becoming a national political figure, which suggests, unquote, which suggests that Epstein knew that his friendship with Donald and Donald's potential involvement with what Epstein was doing may indeed become public knowledge. And Epstein would need to know how to negotiate that. The Times piece also goes on, quote, in one email from April 2011, Epstein told Maxwell, who was later convicted on charges related to facilitating his crimes, quote, I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump, unquote. He added that an unnamed victim, quote, spent hours at my house with him, and he has never once been mentioned, unquote. Quote, I have been thinking about that, Miss Maxwell wrote back, unquote. This information is interesting because back in July, Donald sent Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche to interview Maxwell in prison. And here's what Maxwell had to say then about Donald's interactions with Epstein and his victims.
I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
Okay. Ghislaine Maxwell is a sociopathic monster who is spending 20 years in prison unless, of course, her buddy Donald Trump pardons her for being a co-conspirator to Jeffrey Epstein, who in her own right was convicted of being a rapist and a sex trafficker of girls and young women. I don't actually believe that she and I share the same definition of the word appropriate. I do not believe that she knows what a gentleman is. If she thinks that Donald Trump is a gentleman, well, then that just tells us everything we need to know. She doesn't either know what she's talking about, or she is, as is what I believe is the case, lying through her teeth. Why? Well, if you wanted to get out of a 20-year prison sentence and you had no conscience or soul or remorse, wouldn't you lie too to help protect the guy who has the power to pardon you? This morning, in an interview with MSNBC, Democrat Robert Garcia, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, provided more context on this new information. Here's what he had to say.
We actually just received all of these emails, a total of about 23,000 documents, actually a few days ago, so last week, and we've been going through, our team, of course, through all of these very carefully over the last few days. We obviously released some today. We'll be releasing additional documents likely later today. The important thing here is that we know, and we've been demanding, that Donald Trump and the DOJ release the full Epstein files. In what's been released today, which obviously is some quite serious, I think, connections between what Donald Trump may have known. There's communication between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously making some claims about Donald Trump spending significant time, hours, with possibly one of the victims. There's also disturbing emails there about Trump and Jeffrey Epstein that people can read for themselves. I think what's important right now is that we want to know why Donald Trump spent the entire campaign saying that he would release the files. And now that he's in the White House, there is a massive cover-up going on. The survivors deserve the truth.
Nazi and chief propagandist Caroline Leavitt today claimed falsely that the Trump regime is the most transparent in American history, which begs that question. If that is the case, why? Why will Donald Trump not release the Epstein files? You heard there Representative Garcia saying that the Democrats are very carefully going through these emails in preparation of releasing them to the public. I mean, I'm sure, one, they're going through them to see which are relevant, and two, they are going through them to redact the names of the innocent, which is as it should be. This is in stark contrast to what Donald's DOJ did when they started going through many of the documents in the Epstein files. They weren't redacting names to protect the innocent. They were ordering people in the DOJ to make sure that anytime Donald's name was mentioned, Attorney General Pam Bondi was informed. We know that Donald's name is in the Epstein files. We just don't know in what capacity, because Donald and his DOJ don't want us to know. It should not surprise us, therefore, that Donald's White House is in full lying and cover-up mode. Aforementioned press secretary and Nazi Levitt released a statement saying, in part, quote, "The Democrats selectively leaked emails to the liberal media to create a fake narrative to smear Donald," unquote. Oh, come on. You must have better than that. Weak sauce for you, Ava Brown. Rep. Garcia responded to Levitt's statement in this morning's MSNBC interview, and here's what he had to say in response.
My response is simple. Then release all the files. If the president has nothing to hide, if the press secretary right there in her comments and statement, if they have nothing to hide at the White House or the Department of Justice, then all we want is for them to release the full files. It's very clear. You can't spend your entire campaign saying you're going to do something and make a commitment to the American people and then backtrack. And so we're going to ensure, one, we always are going to protect the victims and survivors. And if they want to clear the president's name, and more importantly, also all of the other men and powerful men that may have been involved, then release the files today. That should be the response from the White House.
This afternoon in a press conference, we were led to believe was meant to address the latest email releases about Jeffrey Epstein. Levitt talked about everything but that until she did get a couple of questions that seemed like plants to me. When asked about reports that Donald plans to commute Maxwell's sentence, she essentially lied and didn't answer, a combination she has become quite practiced at.
Well, if the president is considering a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell?
Again, he's answered this repeatedly. It's not something he's talking about or even thinking about at this moment in time. I can assure you of that.
Well, she can assure us all she wants, but she's lying, because Donald actually said he wasn't considering pardoning her. He wasn't considering not pardoning her. He would have to check with the DOJ and get guidance from them. In other words, he may indeed be considering a pardon. He's probably just waiting to find out how much Ghislaine Maxwell is willing to give him in exchange. When asked a very simple question about this scandal, Levitt gave us nothing but more lies.
In the interest of transparency, why not just go ahead, release the full files on Epstein, get this all over with?
This administration has done more with respect to transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein than any administration ever. In fact, this administration, the Department of Justice, has turned over tens of thousands of documents to the American people. We are cooperating and showing support for the House Oversight Committee. That's part of the reason you are seeing these documents that were released today, because of the House Oversight Committee's and Republicans' efforts to get these out to the public. This administration also moved, the Department of Justice also moved to unseal grand jury testimony, which we know, unfortunately, a judge declined those requests. So this administration has done more than any, and it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party for now they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump, as we have, of course, seen with this government shutdown. And this entire thing, again, it's not a coincidence to the American people at home. There are no coincidences in Washington, D.C. And it is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government. This is another distraction campaign by the Democrat and the liberal media.
All right, as for our last part, how does releasing emails distract from anything? And at last I checked, the government's still closed. But anyway, much more importantly, let's get back to that issue of transparency. Yes, thousands of documents have been released, but they were already public, by the way. As for that grand jury testimony, they wanted it released because it had nothing to do with Donald. So also, that grand jury testimony was a tiny, tiny fraction of the documents that potentially comprise the Epstein files. So that's just another bait and switch. And then there's this whole idea that Joe Biden didn't release the Epstein files. I mean, I guess in retrospect, he should have. But it's Donald Trump who, first of all, didn't release them when he was in the Oval Office for 4 years, from 2017 to 2021. And then in 2024, he made the release of the Epstein files a cornerstone of his campaign. He's the one who promised to do it. He is the one who continues to refuse. In what universe does any of this comprise transparency? But before we go on, the Trump regime is trying to drown out the truth. So we have to keep raising our voices. Please like and share this video. And if you believe in our mission, please subscribe to the Mary Trump Media channel. Many in the Trump regime are participating in this cover-up as well. In an interview with CNN, Republican Representative Marlon Stutzman attempted to downplay these new revelations about Donald and what Epstein had to say about him. Take a look at this clip.
I think that we all know President Trump has been the most investigated person probably in the world over the last several years. And, of course, the information that was released this morning by the Democrats, for one, I would say, it shows up on the day that we're going to open up the government again in the House. We're voting this afternoon. But also, the Oversight Committee, led by the Republican Chairman James Comer, is always going to be looking at the facts and whatever the facts lead. And again, as I say, President Trump has been the most investigated president that we probably will ever have. And so the fact that this information comes out today, I think is a bit ironic, but at the same time, any information that's released has to be taken seriously. And I know that the Oversight Committee will do that.
Let's do a little thought experiment here. Why is Donald the most investigated president in American history? He's committed many, 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 many crimes. That's why. Are we supposed to believe that this is all accidental? Are we supposed to believe that every single investigation into him is a hoax, is just another way to take him down illegitimately based on nothing? Give me a fucking break. Donald himself will continue to lie about this scandal and attempt to distract us from his alleged complicity with the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Here's a clip of him trying to diminish his connection to Epstein back in September by calling it a hoax.
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. It reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Even if you look at D.C. right now, D.C., it's a totally safe zone. It's called a safe zone. That's a term. It's a term of art. It's a safe zone because it's very safe. You can walk down the street now and nothing's going to happen. No crime, no murders, no nothing. Because we had a lot of problems with certain places, and we still do. All run by Democrats, or for the most part, run by Democrats. So what they're trying to do with the Epstein hoax is get people to talk about that instead of speaking about the tremendous success like ending 7 wars. I ended 7 wars. Nobody's going to talk about because they're going to talk about the Epstein whatever.
Yeah, we're going to keep talking about the Epstein files because you said you were going to release them and you haven't, which suggests that there's probably fire where there's smoke. Also, who knew that safe zone is a term of art, means the space is safe? Wow, what a wordsmith he is. So many hoaxes, so little time. The Russia hoax, the classified documents hoax, the insurrection hoax, the stolen election 2020 hoax. And now we have the affordability crisis, which is a Democratic hoax. How many hoaxes can one party that is not even in power possibly keep generating? This falls under the whole heading of distract us, lie to us, and try to convince as many people as possible not to believe their own lying eyes. That is all that Donald Trump has left. Sadly, he has so many people willing to toe the line for him, including every single elected Republican member of Congress, elected Republicans at every level of government, and his despicable White House press secretary. Representative Garcia has said that the oversight Democrats plan to release more information shortly. So everybody, buckle up. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.